What is up, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Scotty Holiday. I'm a queer creator and a huge Star Wars nerd, so if you're into either one of those things, please consider subscribing for more. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Andor Season 1 finale, episode 12, titled Rick's Road. I wasn't sure what to expect going into the finale, but I knew it would be emotional. Naturally, there were a ton of emotional moments for me, and some even in places I didn't expect, and I can't wait to get into all of them with you. With that said, please consider liking the video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought of episode 12. I've put out reviews for each episode of the Andor series and you can check them all out, as well as my guest spots on the Krypton to Alderaan podcast and This is the Wayseekers podcast, talking everything Andor Season 1 in my Andor series playlist at the link in the cards and in the description. Now, let's get into this Andor Season 1 finale review. The episode opens up with scenes of Paak's son, Wilmon, working on something. It's not very clear what he's working on at first, but after a couple more shots, I was like, oh god, this kid's making a bomb. Dedra is the first to arrive on Ferrix, accompanied by two Death Troopers in a stormy sky, which really foreshadows the storm that's about to come to the planet. She goes on a walk through the city, undercover with Attendant Korv to get a feel of things, and we see that they're being followed by Cinta. Now, I wasn't sure if Cinta knew Korv was ISB in the last episode, but this scene confirmed that she definitely does. Zan meets up with Brasso after his shift to inform him about his conversation with Cassian, and their conversation is overheard by Nurchi, who seems very intrigued about this news. Nurchi and Zan end up together at a cantina later on that evening, and it seems like Nurchi is trying to get more information about Cassian's whereabouts. He even offers to get Zan another drink, assuming that if he drinks a little bit more, he'll get a little more loose-lipped. I wasn't really sure if Nurchi was trying to get more information or if he was just genuinely concerned about Cassian, specifically after he tells Zan, "You know something I don't? Do me a favor, keep it that way." But we learn his true intentions later on in the episode. We catch up with Mon Mothma on Coruscant as she and Perrin are leaving an event or party. She asks their driver Cloris for privacy, and just like Perrin, we all know she's about to lay into him. So it turns out Perrin has a gambling problem, and it's been brought to Mon's attention that he's been gambling recently on Coruscant. Of course, Perrin denies the claim, but Mon's literally like, just don't. We even get a little nod to The Last Jedi when Mon tells him, "You can't live without a casino, you go to Canto Bight." Mon makes a point to tell him she's upset at him gambling on Coruscant specifically, and when he asks her where he would even be getting the money for it, she tells him that's what scares her most. Cloris secretly listens in on their conversation, and later in the episode, we see him reporting on it to Supervisor Blevin directly within the ISB headquarters. From Mon and Perrin's conversation, my assumption is that Mon is upset about his gambling because it could draw more attention to her banking, which is already a huge concern to her. On top of that, if Perrin gambles himself into a hole, as Blevin puts it, she'll have less money to put toward funding the rebellion. Back on Ferrix, Vel arrives and meets Cinta at the apartment she's renting. Cinta gives her an update about Attendant Korv and Dedra, but all Vel seems most concerned about is the fact that Cinta didn't pick her up and just that they're together again. I feel like the show is slowly hinting at Vel's disillusions with the cause, or at least the way she's been going about it. She specifically seems frustrated with Cinta putting more effort into the rebellion than their relationship, and I know if I was her, I would probably be feeling the same way. I don't know if I could live solely for the cause and only take what's left, as Cinta put it back in episode 8. Cassian also arrives on Ferrix, and as he sneaks around the city, he takes a moment to visit his father's funerary stone. We get a little flashback scene between him and Clem, and it definitely made me emotional. During this scene, Clem tells Cassian, "People don't look down to where they should. They don't look down, they don't look past the rust. Eyes open, possibilities everywhere." I feel like these lines are a metaphor for the people of the galaxy. The Empire overlooks any possibility of insurrection or revolution because they can't imagine the everyday citizen could actually challenge them. Cass goes to Bix's home next, but he's surprised to see Pegla from the shipyard who's watching the place in her absence, and he fills Cassian in on her imprisonment by the Empire. We then see a couple shots of Bix inside the hotel looking so hopeless and lost, but hear a voiceover from none other than Nemik from his Manifesto, which Cassian is listening to inside the hull of the broken down ship we first see him in during episode 1. I think my favorite lines from what we hear are, "The Imperial need for control is so desperate because it's so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. remember this. Try. The morning of the funeral, Captain Tigo goes over the specifics with Dedra and the other officers, and during their discussion, he mentions the permit requesting the funeral be held midday, but they pushed it back 2 hours, which will actually play into the episode later on. Dedra also makes it a point to tell them she wants Andor alive, though the others don't seem to agree with her. Cassian is no good to them dead, but once again Dedra is the only one making smart decisions in this situation, but she's so often overlooked by the other officers' arrogance. This is then doubled down during the ISB's celebration of Anto Krieger's demise. Dedra calls into the meeting to question why everyone was killed without taking any prisoners, saying, "I just wish I had been a part of the conversation." Once again, Dedra's insight is overlooked due to the Empire's arrogance, with Major Partagaz saying, "This wasn't a dialogue. It was about wiping the taste of Aldhani from the Emperor's mouth." He then goes on to ask her, "You want to start a conversation? Find Axis." But taking no prisoners and killing all of Krieger's men is just gonna make that harder for her and put them a step backwards. What's even crazier about this situation is that Spellhouse is directly under Dedra's jurisdiction, which has been a huge plot point since our introduction to the ISB in the series, yet she wasn't even consulted about it. Though she's gotten progressively more unlikable since the beginning of the series, we see her put in this kind of underdog position again, and I'm really interested to see where her arc goes in season 2 and if we'll end up rooting for her again at some point. Brasso meets up with Cassian in the sewers under Bix's shop, and it was so nice to see them reunited. Cassian immediately starts blaming himself for leaving and not being there for Maarva in her final moments, but in a really sweet gesture, Brasso talks him down and tells him Maarva's final words. In her final words, she wants to reassure him that what he's doing is right, saying he knows everything he needs to know and feels everything he needs to feel, and once he puts those two together, he'll be an unstoppable force for good. And lastly, that she loves him more than anything he could do wrong. I really think this gave Cassian the closure he needed in this moment, and that final push towards fighting for what's right. After this scene, we see Syril and Sergeant Mosk riding the transport into Ferrix, and I can't lie, my reaction to this was literally, ugh, God. They think they're so righteous, and it's just so annoying. Luthen also arrives on Ferrix and meets up with Vel, finally for the first time since dropping Cassian off on Aldhani. She updates him on the happenings with Cassian's rumored arrival and Dedra's presence on the planet. Luthen still plans to kill Cassian and makes this clear to Vel, though she doesn't seem too keen on the idea. I'd like to imagine that she sees the value in keeping him around, especially after everything on Aldhani in the aftermath, but we don't really know for sure. As they plan for the funeral, the anvil begins to sound, catching literally everyone off guard. Then, in a complete fuck you to the Empire, it seems the citizens start the funeral in the time they proposed regardless of the Empire denying their request. Despite it being such a sad occasion, I really loved seeing the funeral procession in the show. As I mentioned before, one of the things I really love about Star Wars is the little world building details sprinkled throughout, and these scenes provided even more world building for Ferrix. As the funeral procession makes their way to the city center, we see all our characters making their way into their places as well. Watching the procession also made me a bit emotional as well, seeing everybody come together for Maarva and just standing up in defiance to the Empire. I just loved it. It's also revealed at this point that Nurchi was working with Attendant Corv this whole time, and he spills the beans on Cassian's arrival and hideout, all just for money and a way off the planet. Throughout these scenes, it was also really sad seeing Bix just watching everything happen and humming along with the band through the window of the hotel room she's imprisoned in. Dedra takes her 2 death troopers to capture Cassian, but once they get there, he's already gone. It turns out he snuck back into the sewers and makes his way to the hotel underground. As he searches through the building for Bix, the funeral continues outside with B2 playing a hologram of Maarva for the crowd. She gives an amazing speech explaining the inspirations she experienced from each person's story in previous funerals she attended in the past and how she wants to do the same to lift and inspire the people of Ferrix now. She explains how despite their past problems, they always had each other and their planet in the end, but in doing so, they were sleeping instead of facing the truth. I loved her line, "The Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. It is never more alive than when we sleep." She says, "If I could do it again, I'd wake up early and be fighting these bastards from the start." This is enough to get Captain Tigo to go into the crowd and cover up B2's projector with his little cape, but Maarva's final line really sets things off. Her speech ends with 3 words: fight the Empire. And though I was disappointed she died off screen in episode 11, this speech was really the perfect send-off for her character. And it's those final words that set Captain Tigo off, causing him to knock B2 over, throwing him to his side. Brasso kicks the shit out of Captain Tigo, which was hilarious, igniting a huge brawl between the people of Ferrix and the Imperial soldiers in the street. Cassian finally reaches Bix, though he's pretty taken aback, understandably, by the state she's in. She tells him Maarva was here, and Cass responds, "Wasn't she great?" Ugh, my heart in that moment. By this point, Dedra and her death troopers have made their way back to the hotel just as Paak's son tosses the bomb he made over the Imperial line to their equipment, causing a huge explosion, which in turn causes multiple grenades to detonate, causing an even larger explosion. I understand Paak's son wanting to get back at the Empire, but even when I first realized what he was making, I had a feeling the bomb would only do more harm than good, and that's kind of exactly what we see happen. This act also causes the Imperials to open fire on the crowd, and it really just turns into chaos from there. This whole sequence was super dark and it kind of felt like all hope was lost, but in the midst of it all, one good thing that happens is that Cinta is able to kill Attendant Corv, and the chaos provides a great cover for Cassian and Bix to escape. So I guess there was some positives. It was also really satisfying getting to see the time grappler yeet a stormtrooper off the bell tower. Dedra gets knocked down in the crowd, causing her to lose her blaster, and the citizens are quick to grab her, but unfortunately, Syril is the one to save her. I was just like, ew, why? When I saw that scene, and the fact that she's like, "I should say thank you," as they stare into each other's eyes. Ugh, it was so gross. I'm just glad they didn't kiss. In the aftermath of the riot, I was so thankful to see all our main characters getting ready to escape the planet. We see Luthen on the outskirts of the city, Vel and Cinta packing up her apartment, and most exciting of all for me, Brasso, Jezzy, B2, and Paak's son prepping a ship to leave as well. I was scared that they may not make it out, but felt a lot better when Cassian and Bix showed up, because at that point I was like, okay, cool, they have plot armor because Cassian's going with them. But then we find out he's not going with them, so I was a bit stressed again. I liked all these characters a lot in this season, and with Cassian promising to find them, I really hope we get to explore them all a bit more in season 2. So after this, we get a quick shot confirming Mon Mothma agreed to Davos Skolden's offer and the indirect betrothal between Leida and his son. Then we shoot back to Ferrix to see Luthen riding his speeder back to his ship. As he enters the ship and prepares for takeoff, he's confronted by none other than Cassian. Cassian offers him a deal saying, "Kill me or take me in," and though we don't hear Luthen's response, he gives Cassian a smile, basically confirming he's going to take him in after all. Now, going into this episode, I saw the rumors of a post-credit scene and I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I thought it could have been a character tease such as Bail Organa or even something with Palpatine. But I was very surprised to see the post-credit scene depicting the construction of the Death Star instead. I didn't really think it was necessary to include or added more intrigue to the story, but what I did like is that we finally got confirmation of what the prisoners on the Narkina 5 facility were building. So in the end, what did you think of the Andor Season 1 finale, and what did you think of the series overall? Going into Andor, I didn't really have any expectations, and truthfully, I wasn't very excited for it. Yet somehow this show became one of, if not my actual favorite Disney Plus live-action Star Wars show. Did your opinion change at all from the show's announcement and lead up to now? And what do you want to see happen in season 2? The rumors suggest a 2024 release, so we've got a ton of time to speculate. Let me know down in the comments below or hit me up on Twitter so we can chat more about it together. If you enjoyed all my Andor reviews, please make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my videos going forward. You can check out all of my Andor Season 1 reviews and podcast guest spots in my Andor series playlist at the link in the description and on the end screen of this video. Please consider checking them out and leaving a like. I really appreciate all of your support so much. To keep up with all my Star Wars content, make sure to subscribe and consider following me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Hive at Scotty Holiday SW for all my latest updates. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.